Just when you thought that J.K. Rowling could not get any more petty, she just released a book that is 600 pages longer than Dune to justify transphobia. No, seriously. The book is called The Ink Black Heart. It is 1,024 pages long, and it centers around a character who gets canceled online by transgender people. It gets worse than that, though. She wrote the book under the pseudonym Robert Galbraith. It's an interesting choice, to say the least. I find it particularly funny that J.K. Rowling writes this book about a transphobe getting canceled off the internet after a couple of trans people stand in protest outside of her castle gates. Meanwhile, actual transgender people are being doxxed, harassed, threatened, and chased all the way around the world by TERF-supported sites like Kiwi Farms. Just look up Keffels right now. On a literary level, supposedly the book is almost unreadable and composed in large sections entirely of tweets. It's really sad how far she has fallen.
All right, guys, so I want you to understand, I don't just make these videos for people who agree with me, who have the same worldviews I do, who have the same, political opinions or whatever. I actually make my videos mainly for people who disagree with me. And I hope that somebody from the godless left stumbled across my videos and they take the red pill, okay? They're convinced by the things I'm saying and the arguments that I am presenting. Now, because the left is godless for the most part, maybe they will listen to a godless man who we have here, Mr. Richard Dawkins, who's a world famous atheist and evolutionary biologist who went on Piers Morgan to respond to Transactivists in regards to this question about gender and gender fluidity. Okay, now this guy in the past has taken some criticism from the mob for simply stating facts about biology. He's an evolutionary biologist. You would think that he would be an expert in this field, and asking for open discussion regarding this subject, which they're going to talk about in this interview here with Piers Morgan. Now, I also want to give a disclaimer. Yes, I understand that Richard Dawkins is an atheist, and while I don't agree with him philosophically in regards to religion or even politically, because he also doesn't like Trump either, he seems to hate Trump, it doesn't mean that his opinion is not valuable in this arena right here, right? In this conversation, this particular conversation, I think his opinion is actually extremely valuable because again, like the left, he's godless and he is a biologist, right? They said that, hey, you only can be a scientist to weigh in on this. This guy is an evolutionary biologist. So again, his opinion here should be extremely valuable, right? It should mean something to the left. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it.
Well, it's just, what's extraordinary to me is they want to, what they call degender and neutralize language, but they're doing it from a completely false pretext that you can somehow pretend biology doesn't exist, particularly when it comes to someone's sex. I mean, it's incontrovertible. There's no scientific doubt about this. And yet a small group of people have been quite successful, actually, in reshaping vast swathes of the way society talks and is allowed to talk.
It's bullying. And we've seen the way J.K. Rowling has been bullied, Kathleen Stock has been bullied. They've stood up to it. But it's very upsetting the way this tiny minority of people has managed to capture the discourse and to really talk arrant nonsense.
Yeah, so when the evolutionary biologist is saying that the gender folks, right, the gender agenda folks, the far left gender activists are talking utter nonsense, that says a lot, okay? That says a whole lot. Now, here's the thing. You don't need to be Richard Dawkins. You don't need to be an evolutionary biologist to know this. You just need to be a human being with common sense, right? And a basic understanding of biology. I mean, hey, I guess technically you could open up the Bible, right? God created man and woman, okay? And you could come to your conclusion about what is truth and what is not. I'm just saying, you don't need to be this distinguished to know. But a guy who, again, specializes in biology, right? He is a biologist, okay? He's at the top of his field. When he says that, hey, there's only two sexes, or that what you're saying is utter nonsense, then, hey, I think that's going to be pretty hard to refute, okay? And I think that most people in the field would say the exact same things unless they're woke, right? Or they're afraid of the woke mob. And unfortunately, that is most of the medical field, which is why they're going along with this despite the fact that they've been trained in enough biology to know the truth. I mean, biology is the foundation of medicine. However, they're incentivized to basically go along with the gender game because they can make money off of it. Okay, they can make hundreds of thousands of dollars off of each person. Okay, which, you know, hey, that's a lot of money, right? There's a huge market for, you know, transgender people, right? That's just the reality. That's what we're seeing here. That's why it's being pushed so much, because that is a money train for the medical community. It is. They can make millions off of it, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? An evolutionary biologist, on the other hand, he doesn't really have much of a financial incentive to go along with the games, okay? He doesn't really have much. I mean, his job is really about trying to get to the truth of reality. Now, whether you agree with him or not, hey, that's on you. But that's what he's trying to do, okay? And from an evolutionary standpoint, this guy is saying, you know, a lot of stuff that we're hearing from the left is nonsense. It's just, it's ridiculous.
What's the answer to it?
Science. I mean, there are two sexes. You can talk about gender if you wish, and that's a subjective. I'm not.
But when people say there are 100 genders, for example.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Yo. Again, disagree with the man philosophically, but I do admire how he carries himself as a certain level of an intellectual. He's like, I'm not even going to engage in conversations that are beneath me to engage in intellectually. Like I'm not going to entertain this idea that there are 100 different genders, or even the conversation about gender in and of itself, which is subjective. I'm just focused on sex, right? There are two sexes and that's it. And that's why, you know, I always argue that I think one trap that people fall into is that they want to go back and forth with these people about sex versus gender, when you should just be like, no, we should organize society around sex, and that's it. You can be whatever gender you want to be, right? I'm not interested in that. I don't care about the social construction of what gender is, right? I don't care about that. I just care about biology. We should organize society around biology, and that's it, right? And if you stick to that, then it doesn't matter how they feel or what they feel like. You're a biological man, you're a biological woman. That's it. Those are your two options, right? And if you fall into one category, right, which everybody does, then, hey, these are the rules that you got to follow. And that's it, period. I'm not engaging in any more debate outside of that, right? There's no more debate outside. You can identify as whatever you want to identify as, but when it comes to how we function as a society, we're going based off biological sex. That's it.
As a biologist, there are two sexes, and that's all there is to it.
Again, just like I said, there are two sexes. That's all there is to it. You guys can whine and cry about it, but there's two sexes. This is how we're making policies. This is how we're making rules of our society. You can cry, you can whine about it. I don't care, but this is biology. This is fact. Okay, we are writing laws based off fact. Okay, not what's made up in your head.
You had a Humanist Award stripped in 2021 because of your comments about this kind of thing. You had a tweet in April of that year. In 2015, you tweeted, Rachel Dolezal, a white chapter president in America of the NAACP, was vilified for identifying as black. She was white. Some men choose to identify as women. Some women choose to identify as men. You'll be vilified if you deny that they literally are what they identify as.
Yeah, so this tweet right here is pretty hilarious in the sense that Richard Dawkins just simply pointing out the obvious hypocrisy from the left in regards to the conversation about transgenderism and racialism or whatever, right? In the sense that men can choose to identify as women and women can choose to identify as men, and that's totally fine, right? But if a white person chooses to identify as black, then you should be vilified, right? And Richard Dawkins is saying you will be vilified if you deny that they literally are what they identify as, okay? As in the people that are vilifying Rachel Dolezal, or that were vilifying Rachel Dolezal, technically they should be vilified, right? There's some type of bigot, right? There's some type of phobe, okay? I guess they're transphobe. Technically, they're transphobe because they're against transracial people, right? You should be vilified because you are denying that people literally are what they identify as, right? And he just said, look, discuss, right? Let's have open discussions. And he lost awards because of this tweet, right? They tried to cancel him over this tweet, over simply asking people to discuss this obvious hypocrisy.
Discuss, and all hell broke loose, and you had your award stripped because you were effectively doing what J.K. Rowling and others have said. You were just espousing a biological fact.
I wasn't even doing that. I was asking people to discuss. discuss. That's what I've done all my life in universities.
Why have we lost?
You can't do that anymore in university, right? You can't discuss anymore, buddy. You can't do that. Again, I disagree with the guy, right, on a lot of things, but I respect his right to say those things, even if I disagree with him, okay? I don't think he should be canceled for it. I don't think that he should lose anything because of his beliefs are different than mine, right? And the point he's bringing up here, I think, is, again, an essential point to freedom of speech is that we're not allowed to even have discussions anymore. Even in academia, you can't have discussions. You can't freely talk about this stuff.
That ability to actually have an open and frank debate.
There are people for whom the word discuss doesn't mean discuss. It means you've taken a position, which I hadn't. But anyway, I thought it was a reasonable thing to discuss. This was, on the one hand, I actually wrote a couple of follow-up articles to this. Race is actually a much more fluid concept than sex. For one thing, many people are of mixed race, so they really can be, you know.
Well, I had my DNA done, for example,
Yes.
Properly tested. It came back, I had 0 English DNA, 0. I actually have 6% Middle Eastern.
Yes.
For example,
Yes.
right? So that was a shock to me. I had no idea.
Yes.
A lot of Celt, a lot of Irish and Scottish and Welsh.
Yes.
But no English whatsoever.
Yes. Well, we're all mixed, and therefore it actually is a perfectly reasonable thing for somebody to identify as some particular race if they want to. But sex is not like that.
Ding, 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 ding. I've been saying this for the longest time. Transracialism makes much more sense than transgenderism from an biological and evolutionary perspective, okay? If transgenderism is allowed and we're supposed to adhere to that, then transracialism should be allowed and we're supposed to adhere to that as well too, okay? This is why, I'm just saying, because race, according to the woke social scientists, is a social construct as well too, just like gender, right? They're both social constructs. Then, hey, I think that people who, are white should start identifying as black or so-called person of color so that they can take advantage of, some affirmative action, right? I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying that should be allowed. All that should be allowed if we're going to base society around social constructs, right? Not biological constructs, but social constructs, because race is also a social construct, according to the woke social scientists. But again, it's just funny how they never accept that, right? When they say, well, you guys make the same arguments about race that you do with gender, that is a social construct, and also genetically and biologically, race is fluid and gender is not. Well, doesn't transracialism make sense? No, you can't do that. That's racist. That's racist, right? You can't be white and identify as black, right? You're appropriating, okay? You're appropriating somebody else's culture. You're appropriating somebody else's race. But you can appropriate somebody's gender or sex, right? That's totally acceptable and normal. Again, we live in an upside down world, okay? It doesn't make sense. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this outside of the feelings of a very small group of people who society feels the need to capitulate to because we don't want to hurt their feelings, right? Again, it's incredible, man. It really is. None of this makes sense. It makes no sense and has no basis in actual real biology, science, reality, or anything like that. It's made up. Okay, it's 100% made up. So, yeah. Again, just hearing them say this, again, is almost like a breath of fresh air. Because I know I'm not like crazy, right? But again, it shouldn't take an evolutionary biologist to say this and for people to say, okay, well, this makes sense. Okay, I mean, this is something we can all observe.
Sex really is binary, and therefore it's certainly worth discussing that odd anomaly, which I pointed out in that tweet.
Yeah, it is worth discussing, but the woke activists don't want to discuss it because again, there come some very interesting questions, right, about the race conversation if they actually had a discussion, which they don't want to have, right? They don't want to go down that road, okay, of transracialism, okay, versus transgenderism. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.